Welcome to another edition of the Best Business Minds, where we interview business leaders and academics that write thought-provoking books. I'm Marc Kramer, a serial entrepreneur who consults with family businesses and entrepreneurs, and I'm currently teaching at Vinh University in Hanoi, Vietnam, and today is my one-year anniversary at the university and living in Hanoi, Vietnam. Today, please welcome Shirish Nadkarni, author of Winner Takes All. Shirish, welcome.
Great to be with you, Mark.
And Shirish, this is the second time you've been with me, and so we're thrilled to have you. And so let's start off with you telling us about your background.
You bet. So I've been in the tech business for the last 30 plus years. I started my career at Microsoft in the late 80s, right after they went IPO. This was in the days of MS-DOS, not Windows. And I stayed with Microsoft for about 12 years. I was responsible for the acquisition of Hotmail, which was a big acquisition at that time, as well as the launch of MSN.com, which became one of the top 3 web portals. After that, I started my entrepreneurial journey. I've done 3 startups. I've had 2 successful exits. First one was with BlackBerry. We had a mobile email solution that became part of BlackBerry. And then I started a company called LiveMocha, which was in the language learning space and was acquired by Rosetta Stone.
Fantastic, amazing, and so fortunate to have so many great success stories, and especially being an early person at Microsoft. That must have been an amazing experience.
Oh, absolutely. At that time, we were creating new markets. When I joined Microsoft, I was the product manager for what was known as Microsoft Mail, which didn't exist at that time. Email was only being utilized by very, very large corporations like Boeing on mainframe systems. And so I had the opportunity to really create a new category of email on the PC platform.
Did you get a chance at all to work with Bill Gates directly?
Funnily, actually, the year that I joined Microsoft, 1987, Melinda Gates, or she was known as Melinda French at that time, joined Microsoft at the same time of the same class of MBAs. And she and I worked together on, she was on Microsoft Word and I was on Microsoft Mail, and we were working together on a product that combined Microsoft Word and Mail. And we presented to Bill Gates at that time. That's how Bill Gates came to know Melinda French, who became Melinda Gates.
So it's your fault.
That's the story to a pretty interesting story.
And what was Bill Gates like to work with at all?
Bill Gates is a very, very smart person. He would take the time to actually read. We would send him in advance of a meeting. We would send him a memo describing, our business plan and so forth. And he would actually, even with his busy schedule, he would take the time to read the memo. And he was very, very sharp. He was known to also get upset pretty easily. So how your meeting went was a big function of his mood. If he was in a bad mood, then chances were that you didn't have a very good meeting.
So that kind of flies in the face of what good leadership you're always taught or should be. That you always need to have pretty much a calm personality so people can trust you and not be afraid to tell you things, don't have to check your temperature. But I had heard that before about what was his leadership style like?
I think, he basically inspired people by making sure that you did your homework really well. And, Microsoft had a lot of bright people, and they wanted to show that they knew their stuff really well. And so even though, he was a difficult personality to work with, he made sure that we were very well prepared, and we knew our competition well, and we knew why we were going to win. So I think that helped Microsoft become a great company.
Was the current CEO there when you were there?
He joined in 1992. I joined in 1987, so I was there about 5 years before him. I knew him socially, I didn't know him from a work perspective.
Because he has a totally different management style, right?
That's correct. He's a very calm personality, very thoughtful, very intelligent guy. So very different personality, and he's done well for Microsoft.
Yeah, he's done phenomenal for them. Why did you write this book?
Well, I've been fascinated by marketplaces for a long time, and my second company, LiveMocha, which is a social network of language learners, we created a marketplace of language tutors that you could connect with at any time. And we saw the power of network effects kicking in for us, and we were the leader in that space. And so, as I write about with the title of the book, Winner Takes All, with marketplaces, because of the network effects that kick in, once you reach critical mass, it can be a winner take all, winner take most kind of situation. And so I wanted to write about my experience and wanted to encourage people to consider building online marketplaces as opposed to just doing e-commerce.
How did your professional experiences and background influence your perspective on winner takes all markets?
Yeah, so my main experience with online marketplaces was with LiveMocha, the language learning service that we launched in 2007. And one of the key things that we offered was the ability to connect with the language tutor anywhere in the world and get lessons at a fairly inexpensive price. And we were very successful with our marketplace. We had over 300,000 language tutors on our platform who are instructing students all over the world.
How do you define a winner takes all market?
It's a market where there's really one main winner. We've seen that with Amazon, with eBay, and more recently with DoorDash, with Airbnb, Instacart. They're all companies that are winners in their marketplace, and they have in excess of 70-80% market share in their respective markets. And as I mentioned, it's once you have network effects kicking in, the flywheel keeps flying in your favor, and you slowly and steadily build critical mass and take over the market.
What are some of the key characteristics of businesses that thrive in a winner take all market?
First and foremost, you have to have an intensive focus on the customer, even more so than the competition. That's if you've heard about this from Jeff Bezos, the motto at Amazon has always been focus insanely on the customer. So make sure that you really understand your customer's needs and you address those needs very effectively. Certainly, you should be aware of your competition, but at the end of the day, if you have a marketplace with lots of suppliers, then by definition, you're going to win that marketplace as long as you provide really great service to your customers.
Can you summarize the primary strategies for succeeding in these markets?
Yeah, so if you're launching an online marketplace, the number one thing to do is to focus on creating a strong supplier base. And that's difficult because you don't have any consumers when you're starting off. So how do you convince suppliers to join your market? And so that's the trick. And we've seen, as I write about in my book, with companies like DoorDash and Instacart, Instacart, for example, scraped the content from Safeway's site and made that available to consumers to buy groceries, and then they would go pick up the groceries themselves. Similarly, DoorDash, took the printed menus from restaurants in Palo Alto and made that available on their website, even without the permission of these restaurants. And once they had critical mass, they could go to the restaurants and say, hey, we placed so many orders from our consumers. to your restaurant, why don't you join our platform? And so the first and foremost thing that you have to work on is really creating a strong supplier base, and then you can worry about getting consumers to join the marketplace.
Are there any examples of companies that failed to achieve dominance in winner-take-all markets, and what went wrong for them?
Yeah, so going back to some of my examples, the food delivery market has been a winner-take-most situation as opposed to winner-take-all. So Instacart has strong competition from Uber Eats and some other players. Of course, the market started with 50 different players, and over time they consolidated down to about 3 or 4 players. And so that's the situation that we see with the food delivery business.
What lessons can be learned from successes of companies like Microsoft, where you worked, or Google, as presented in the book?
Yeah, with Microsoft, it was all about creating a platform that attracted applications and users, and then the network effects would kick in to make that platform really successful. So first, Microsoft was successful MS-DOS, and that was the platform for applications on the early IBM PC platforms, and then Windows became successful and people started writing Windows applications. And then subsequently, it was Microsoft Office. And Office also became a platform for building applications. And so you've seen with Microsoft a continual focus on creating platforms where developers are building applications. And once you have applications that satisfy a variety of needs, then that's what really makes that platform successful.
How do networks effects contribute to the winner-take-all dynamic?
So the way it works is that, as I described earlier, first you focus on creating an initial supplier base, and then you focus on bringing consumers to your platform. And then what happens is that if you are really delivering a great offering, a great service, then more other suppliers see the success you're having, and they join the network. And once you have more suppliers, then more consumers come. There's more liquidity in the marketplace, and it's a virtuous circle, a virtuous flywheel, where more consumers drive more suppliers drive more consumers, and that's how the network effects really work to create a winner-take-all situation.
Have there been platforms that you thought were going to be very successful and they ended up failing? And what did you learn from that?
Well, one example is BlackBerry, where I worked. My first company was acquired by BlackBerry in 2002. You may recall BlackBerry was a very popular keyboard-based mobile device before iPhone became successful. They were one of the things that caused their failure was that they failed to build a platform for applications, whereas iPhone, within a few years of launching, they focused on developing a platform where developers could build applications for the iPhone platform. Same thing with Android. They also built a platform for building applications. And like the Microsoft example I gave, once you have lots of applications, then that gives users more reason to join your platform. So that's one of the reasons that BlackBerry failed, because they didn't really build a platform for interesting applications to use.
Didn't you also think it failed? I mean, everybody in corporate America was using a BlackBerry, but the screens were so small.
Yes.
And it seemed like, the finance people said, you know what, we already so entrenched in here. Why spend the money on improving the product. And I think that seems like what you see in every failed leader is that they decided not to reinvest. Kodak, um, uh, Blockbuster, all of them had substantial leads that they squandered in a pretty short period of time by not making adjustments. Is there
You're
lessons
absolutely
learned for
right.
that?
You're absolutely right. I knew the founders of BlackBerry quite well when I became part of BlackBerry, and they poo-pooed the iPhone when it came out, and they said that the battery life would be terrible. One of the things that really distinguished the BlackBerry device was that its battery life was great. It would last for
Yeah,
5 days without charging, and the reason, and so they really, that's why they kept the screen small, and they optimized how they used the networks and so forth. And whereas the iPhone, had a big screen, which took up a lot of battery life, and you had to charge every day. But it became clear that users loved the big screen, and they were willing to charge their phones every day in order to get the big screen and use the touch interface. And then eventually, as I mentioned, they also started offering other applications on their device. And so, yes, in technology, you have to be very vigilant about new technologies coming out, new platforms coming out, and adapting to those new technologies. Otherwise, you'll be left behind.
yeah, no doubt about it. How important is it for companies to achieve first mover advantage? Because many companies that we see today weren't the first mover. So how important is that?
In an online marketplace, I would say it is very important to be a first mover, because once you gain critical mass, then the virtuous flywheel works in your favor, and you start getting more and more suppliers and more consumers. I've seen, and I discussed many examples in the book, that the ones who are first to the market, like Amazon or eBay or Instacart, DoorDash, they were the ones that really succeeded by being first to the market. But there are, of course, examples of other companies like Google, who was not first to market, or iPhone, which was not first to market, but they had a much better product that ultimately succeeded. But I would still say that being first to market gives you a big advantage.
Yeah, wondered about that because we had seen over time so many companies like Facebook wasn't the first; they were like the third into that space
Correct.
after Friendster and MySpace.
Correct. Yes.
How important? What are some of the effective competitive strategies for companies entering winner-take-all markets?
As I mentioned earlier, the most important thing that you can do is first is to build your supplier base. Make sure you have enough suppliers to satisfy the needs of your consumers. And then secondly, to build trust. Building trust in the marketplace is very, very important. eBay, for example, did that by establishing a reputation system, which was then copied by Amazon. In China, Taobao was a successful consumer-to-consumer marketplace, and they had a escrow service. So you could, if you ordered something from another consumer, you didn't, if you got cheated, you could go to Taobao to get a refund. And so establishing trust in the marketplace is the second most important thing that you can do from a competitive perspective.
How should companies defend their market position once they've achieved dominance?
Yeah, it's very interesting. Amazon has been a very dominant player in the e-commerce space as an online marketplace. And now they're being challenged by TikTok and Temu and Shein. These are companies from China, and they're TikTok has a different way of evaluating products and buying products and so forth. So, you have to continually focus on your customers, really deliver great service, have a great return, policy, have, as we discussed earlier, a reputation system so that when you buy products, you're confident that you're buying the best products. So these are things that you need to really focus on in order to ultimately, stave off the competition.
What role does innovation play in maintaining a competitive edge in a winner-take-all market?
Yeah, innovation is very critical. Great examples are Uber, which took advantage of the mobile platform. So once mobile devices were, widely prevalent, you could be anywhere and use a mobile device to order a car service, and you could, see where the car was and know exactly when they would come and pick you up. So that's one example of applying innovation. So I give many examples in my book about how different marketplaces have applied innovation to really deliver great new offerings to consumers.
How important is customer loyalty in these winner-take-all markets?
Well, customer loyalty has to be earned every day. I'm very loyal to Amazon because I read the reviews. I know when I purchase something that I made a good purchase decision, and if I'm wrong for some reason, then I know there's a easy refund policy, and I can return the product if I'm not happy without any cost and so forth. So customer loyalty has to be gained every day. If for some reason Amazon starts failing in delivering products quickly, or not giving me a refund in time, and not supporting me, then I'm going to start looking for other solutions. And so that's what I tell people, is that really focus on customer service and make sure that you're delivering great value to your customers every day, day in, day out.
Who do you think does that really well, besides
Well,
Amazon?
Amazon does that really, really well. Oftentimes when I place an order, not only is there 2-day delivery, many times I can get the product within a day. So Amazon, certainly does, a great job in delivering great value to customers like myself. There are other services like DoorDash, where I've not been very happy with the service. I'll order food and I'm waiting for over an hour for the food to be delivered, and by the time it arrives, it's cold and so forth. So I've not had a particularly great experience there, and I'm sure that they suffer from not delivering a great customer experience.
Many of the biggest online services like Instacart and Uber weren't overnight successes. Uber still struggles to make a profit.
Yes.
With customers used to these services, what are the opportunities the next generation are in the areas of food, beverage, and other services that haven't been exploited or could benefit through new business model?
Yeah, again, delivering a great customer experience is very, very important. You talk about Uber. It should have been a winner-take-all marketplace, but their CEO made a lot of errors. He was perceived as being arrogant. There were reports of customers being attacked by their drivers. There was a delete Uber movement that you may have heard about.
Yeah.
And so that really allowed competitors like Lyft to come into the marketplace and establish a presence in the marketplace. So my mantra, again, is focus on really delivering great customer value day in and day out, because that's what keeps customers loyal to your service. And so that's one way to really make sure that you stay ahead of your competition. But you can take advantage of new technologies, you can introduce new business models, all the things that you can do to disrupt existing players.
Airbnb, as you tell the story, got started in 2007, really didn't become a household name for almost a decade. Will the times shorten because people are used to renting homes online? And what do you think what will you think the next level will be in this space?
Yes, generally, it can take 5 to 7 years for an online marketplace to really become a household name and become dominant, as we've seen with the likes of Uber, Airbnb, DoorDash, Instacart, etc. And so you have to be patient, and you have to have a strong backing from your VC investors to really back you and invest in your company, invest in growth while you're not profitable for a very long time. But as mobile technology is being adopted, and now virtually everyone in the United States and even around the world, in countries like Vietnam, where you are, India, mobile devices are widely prevalent. I think you will see adoption of new marketplaces happening much, much faster.
What strategies do you recommend for building and maintaining a strong customer base?
Yeah, so as I discussed earlier, building trust is one of the most important things that you can do to really bring customers to your platform, make sure that they can transact with confidence in your marketplace. There are a variety of ways that you can build trust. You can have some kind of a reputation review system. You can have some kind of an escrow service, refund policy if the customer is not satisfied. You can have insurance being offered. So, for example, with Airbnb, they had a situation where a renter trashed the host's home, and it was written up in the press, and Uber got a lot of bad press, and so they had to scramble to get insurance, coverage for their hosts. So building trust, having a large supplier base with a long tail, these are all important things to really build your online marketplace and be successful.
What technologies can be used to do that now? And is it cheaper to launch these platforms now than it has been at any time in history? Because it seems there's so many great technologies out there, and the cost of them has become incredibly reasonable.
Yes. So as I mentioned before, now virtually everyone has a smartphone device that's always connected. So suppliers have devices, consumers have devices, they can communicate using mobile devices. So being a mobile first platform becomes super, super important. The other thing that is happening now with AI is that your recommendation system can become much, much better. So when you are, for example, on Airbnb or you are on Facebook, they know what their AI technology knows what kind of preferences consumers have, and they're able to make better recommendations to consumers. So the consumers are more likely to find products that they're looking for, and there's a higher likelihood of a transaction taking place on their platform. So AI is, I would say, is a new technology, relatively new technology that is going to make online marketplaces even more successful and do so much in a more efficient manner.
Yeah, I was wondering what changes AI is going to make in these marketplaces that we haven't seen yet. Like, do you have kind of a vision of what you think this technology is going to do?
Yeah, so first, the recommendation systems have become much better. You see more content, more products that are more aligned with your needs. And now with generative AI, you can actually converse with the online marketplace to consummate your transaction. So today, for example, if you go to Expedia, they're using the chat GPT to allow people to construct the itinerary. So you can say, hey, I'm going to Sedona, Arizona, build me an itinerary for the next 3 days. And it will do that, for you. And then you can find suppliers who will conduct the tours for you, or transportation to take you to where you need to be, and so forth. So generative AI, I think, is going to be even a brand new technology that's going to make life easier for consumers.
I got to say, it's made life easier for professors in some ways, in other ways, not so much. I mean, we have a problem, of course, of students just using AI to do their papers, and oftentimes it's inaccurate. I mean, I just had one today that clearly they were using AI and it didn't even answer the question
Right.
for what we were testing them on. But at the same time, when you're trying to build a rubric, it can do it very fast for you. And if you need ideas for the class, it's also fantastic for that. It's going to be interesting to see how that keeps improving, especially bots. I hate dealing with bots, but they are starting to get better where they're answering, being more helpful answering questions. What do you think?
No, I think with chatbots like ChatGPT, they are becoming just incredible in terms of the conversation that you can have with that kind of technology. So I think you will see a lot better interaction, and for customer service, for example, as well. Instead of getting frustrated, I think you'll get a lot of answers quickly, more easily with generative AI than you had experienced before.
How should companies approach market segmentation and targeting in these highly competitive environments?
No, that's a great question. I think really focusing and targeting your consumers initially is very important. So again, I give examples in my book. When Instacart got started, they started in San Francisco market. Same thing with DoorDash. They started in Palo Alto. OfferUp launched in Seattle. You can't necessarily launch on a nationwide basis and hope to be successful. You need to focus on a specific geography or a specific customer segment. Start there, create network effects in that small region or segment, and then expand into other markets.
What role does technology play in enabling companies to achieve market dominance beyond using AI?
Well, with online marketplaces, as we discussed before, mobile technology has been critical in connecting consumers with suppliers and ensuring that there's a fast transaction that's taking place. A good example of that is OfferUp. You may be familiar with OfferUp. They are a competitor to Craigslist. Craigslist used to be the dominant marketplace for secondhand goods, but they never really developed a mobile application for a very long time. And that gave OfferUp the opportunity to come into the marketplace and create a great mobile experience where you could take an item that you wanted to sell and simply take a picture of that and post that on their online marketplace. And then you could use instant messaging to communicate between the consumer and the supplier or the host. And so being mobile first and providing a great experience has been very helpful for a number of online marketplaces.
A question from the audience. Do you think with likes of ChatGPT, Google can be around in the next 5 years? And if yes, why?
I think that's a great question. I think Google has a shot at being around in the next 5 years. They were actually responsible for the transformer technology that OpenAI utilized to build very, very large language models. And even Google did not know how powerful their own technology was. And so they're now scrambling to catch up. The Gemini technology is not as good as ChatGPT, but I do expect that over time that they will integrate AI into their search, and it'll become a seamless interaction where you're really having a conversation with your search tool as opposed to just transactional interactions.
How can companies leverage data and analytics to stay ahead in the winner-take-all markets, and at the same time have consumers comfortable with the fact that they are using this data and not basically sharing their personal information?
Yes, it's very important for companies to have privacy policies that dictate how consumer data is captured and kept confidential, and that you are analyzing data on an aggregate basis as opposed to identifying individuals. So that's really important in building trust in the marketplace for consumers, so that they are confident that they can interact within that marketplace and that their data is not being shared externally.
What are the potential risks of focusing too heavily on winning at all costs, as you write about in this book?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mentioned examples of abuses of power by companies like Amazon and Apple and Google and so forth. With Amazon, for example, a number of their product managers secretly access data about different suppliers, and they were able to build competitive products that were then preferenced by the Amazon search engine. And so they destroyed opportunities for a lot of suppliers on the Amazon marketplace. So you have to be very careful about how you protect the data and build confidence with suppliers that their data is not going to be misused.
In the chapter on Google, you talked about how they bought the Android system for $50 million. Did that cement their status as the leading search engine because it made them ubiquitous? And what will it take to continue their reign, or is it likely based on past history that they'll eventually fall like all the others?
Yeah, so one of the key strategies that Google employed was to open source the Android technology. And so a number of phone manufacturers adopted Android as a result. And Google search became the default search on all those devices. And so that's how they maintained their search dominance, even as the consumer interaction moved from the web to mobile devices. I think AI today is a big threat to Google, as we discussed. Though I'm fairly confident that Google has very, very smart people, and they will be able to integrate AI into search and continue to provide a great experience. So I do expect that they will be around for the next 5 to 10 years. But you never know. I mean, we've seen many players like BlackBerry and even Microsoft lose their dominance as technology has evolved.
It's funny you said you gave it such a short horizon, like 5 years.
Yes.
I mean, you think that somebody who's probably they have 100 billion in cash. I mean, they could buy a small country.
Right.
And yet you look at it and say, ah, they're not going to be here like, let's say 100 years ago, nobody could envision Bethlehem Steel and US Steel not being around for the next, if that question was asked, oh yeah, they should be at least around for the next 50, 75 years. But now we talk in much smaller time frames, right? Why do you think that is?
Yes, because technology moves so quickly. I mean, you've seen, recently with AI technology, AI started, machine learning started becoming prevalent in the 2014-15 timeframe and really became widely adopted by 2018-19 timeframe. And then suddenly out of the blue, you have generative AI making, that burst into the scene and really captured the imagination of people. So technology can evolve very, very rapidly. And if you're not really at the forefront of technology changes, you could be disrupted fairly quickly.
I I remember when Ask Jeeves and InfoSeek and Alta Vista and Dogpile and all those others, must have been like 15 of them,
Yes.
all raising like significant money, like $500 million. What did Google do that the others missed out on?
Yeah, well, there were two things that happened. One was players like InfoSeek and Excite and Yahoo, who were the dominant search players, started defocusing search and focusing on building a portal. They wanted to become the destination site for consumers and providing them a range of services. And so they lost their focus on search. That's one reason why they lost Google. Second reason is that Google came out with a much, much better search engine that provided much better search results through their PageRank algorithm, which was very new at that point. And so Google became very popular as a search destination because of their technology and the lack of focus from their competition.
Question from the audience. Winner takes all markets typically have high barriers to entry, including significant upfront investment requirements, technological expertise, regulatory hurdles, and established brand recognition. These barriers make it difficult for entrants to challenge incumbents and disrupt the market. Are there strategies you can offer for small, dynamic, innovative companies to have a chance to fight the entrenched powers? And will AI play a role in that disruption?
Yes. So we talked about Amazon and how dominant Amazon is as a online marketplace. But they are being challenged today by the likes of TikTok, Temu, and Shein from China. TikTok has become, has captured the imagination of young adults. And they have now turned TikTok into a online marketplace where suppliers can use video to promote their product. And you're now seeing more and more TikTok users using TikTok as a way to buy product. That's how, for example, my daughter, I was surprised to find out was that she bought some of her products recently through TikTok because that's how she found those products. And she could see who was really recommending it and why the product was good and so forth. And so, threats can emerge from any, part of the world. And AI can also be a very important technology. The reason why TikTok is so popular among young adults is because of AI. They're able to find the right videos that will continue to engage you. And they use AI and the recommendation system to really keep you engaged within their platform.
In the book, you talk about the abuse of power and monopolies that Amazon, Apple, and Google enjoy. What do you think should be done to level the playing field for all the other players in the space?
Yeah, so I think government regulation of some sort is important. You're already seeing that happen with Apple and Android. Apple, as you know, charges a 30% take rate for applications on their marketplace. And now the EU and Japan and Korea have introduced legislation which has forced Apple to offer additional app stores on their platform. And they made a lot of changes that have forced Apple to make their platform more open, and and that has put pricing pressure on their take rate. So I think government regulation is important to address the monopoly power that they have established for themselves.
See, I mean, so many of these folks feel that the government should never be involved, but it's just like having police. If you didn't have them, people would be murdering each other left and right. So you need government intervention here. How
Yes.
much is like enough intervention, and what should that look like?
You're right. I mean, you have to be careful of not having too much government regulation. I mean, you have the example of Microsoft and the antitrust lawsuit that was filed against Microsoft, in the 2000, timeframe. And at the end of the day, that Microsoft lost dominance because of competition, not because of regulation. So I think there's a natural tug of war between the likes of Apple and Amazon and government regulators. Amazon has and Apple have an army of lobbyists in Washington to make sure that they're not going to be suffocated by some government regulation that is unfair. So I'm quite confident that that process will play itself out, and you will have just enough regulation to keep these players honest.
But you read every day in the Wall Street Journal that Apple, when they go set their sights on a company, that they will come across as if they're going to invest in that company
Yes.
and then copy everything and steal the key employees from that company and try to crush the other one. Amazon, I don't know if it still has this or not, but Amazon used to have a requirement that you signed a document that if your business did really well and they wanted to buy you, they bought you pretty cheaply. And if that does not exist anymore, I've read in the Wall Street Journal where they do the same thing as Apple, or they copy you and create an in-house brand
Yes.
to try to crush you because they've got all the data and they know which of these businesses is doing really well, and they just copy what they do. It
Right.
all seems to me to be incredibly unfair. What's your take on this, and what should the government, if anything, do?
Yeah, I definitely talk about that in my book about, with Amazon, as you described, situations where either they have bought, there's a case of it, a diaper company that was Quidsi that was selling diapers, and how they engaged in really lowering the price to make it uncompetitive for that company to really compete with Amazon. And then they were purchased by Amazon for a low price. And then you talk about the Apple example as well. So I think that definitely has to be looked at by the FTC or the Justice Department. And small companies have to be very careful about how they deal with Apple, with Amazon, and how much they disclose to those companies, and be very careful about that. But definitely the FTC, the Justice Department, can take action to correct these situations.
Although Craigslist revenue is over 1 billion, it's a huge success by any measure. Why hasn't Craigslist made any changes to their website and really hasn't had the growth I think people thought when they started, hard to believe, but 30 years ago?
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, Craigslist had here's a example of a winner-take-all situation that over time, they lost their dominance because they never really invested in updating their technology and really focusing on different niche areas. I discuss in my book how different players like like Airbnb and others, basically, went after specific markets that Craigslist operated in and offered better solutions. They also did not offer a mobile solution for a very long time, which was their downfall with other companies like OfferUp. So, as with any company, if you don't really invest in the latest technologies, then you'll be picked apart by a competition.
I mean, when Bill Gates left and Steve Ballmer ran the company for 10 years, it was like a dead 10-year period.
Yes.
And yet they're recruiting the smartest minds from the very best schools around the world. Why does that happen?
Well, I strongly believe that having a product leader is very important for a technology company. If you look at Microsoft with Bill Gates, Steve Jobs at Apple, Jeff Bezos at Amazon, these are all companies led by product leaders, people who understand technology, who understand product. You don't have to be super technical. I mean, Steve Jobs was not a programmer, but he really understood product, right? And what products to create that consumers would like. And the problem that Microsoft faced with Steve Ballmer was he was a sales guy. He really didn't understand product, and he didn't make the kind of investments necessary to win and continue to dominate in the industry. And now you have Satya Nadella, who is again a product leader who has turned the situation around for Microsoft, and now they're a $2 trillion company. So that's one of the key reasons I think why these companies have failed. Those who have been led by salespeople or business people who don't really have a good understanding of product.
Question from the audience. Do you think Sal Khan of Khan Academy should do a for-profit model to better take advantage of the network effects and marketplace changes to achieve his goals and non-financial? So can you tell us a little bit about who Sal Khan is and then explain more about this?
Yeah, so Sal Khan is the founder of Khan Academy. He started by creating videos teaching different topics or subject areas to his niece, and he posted that on YouTube and found that there are lots of people who were interested in watching his videos and learning about math and algebra and calculus and a variety of different topics. And soon that became Khan Academy. He can certainly turn it into a for-profit model, but I'm very impressed and gratified that he's chosen to remain a nonprofit. And the good thing is that he has strong backing from foundations like the Gates Foundation and others to continue to invest in technology. So I think he has enough money to continue to invest in technology to be at the forefront of education technology. So it's not really necessary for him to become a nonprofit, a for-profit organization.
What rules need to be changed so merchants on these platforms aren't crushed? Because as I mentioned earlier, these Amazon, Google have used merchant data to sell their ideas to customers. Is there anything else that they could do so these small companies that are almost probably family businesses don't get crushed by these guys? And why aren't they just satisfied with the fact that they're getting a substantial percentage without even making an investment themselves?
Right. Well, this issue came up in a number of government, Congress hearings, and Amazon, for example, has tightened up the data access within the company so that people who are in the private label business are not accessing the data anymore. And so there is action being taken to make sure that that data is kept behind a wall that only certain people can gain access to. So I believe that is being addressed as we speak.
What marketplaces do you see that really don't have a dominant leader, but are going to be great opportunities for entrepreneurs?
Well, I gave the example of grocery delivery. That's not a winner take all; it's a winner take most situation. And you have players like Instacart and others, DoorDash, who are playing in that market. There's still significant room for innovation in that marketplace. There are companies that who are investing in ghost kitchens or vans that are driving around making food fresh so that the delivery times are lower and so forth. So there's always room for innovation in these marketplaces and opportunities to really displace existing players if they're not very careful about keeping up with their competition.
Entrepreneurs who are looking for new opportunities, and maybe they're supporting some of these marketplaces, or they're supporting some of the companies that are working on these marketplaces, just like with the gold miners, where it was really made selling the picks and shovels as opposed to digging for the gold. What are some of the business opportunities that you see right now that people could take advantage of?
Well, one of the things I talk about in my book is about the evolution of marketplaces. You've seen initially, like with the likes of eBay, you have just a listing service, and that has evolved over time to services, marketplaces like Uber, where they consummate the automatically connect you to a driver as opposed to you having to go through a list of drivers and their reviews and ratings and so forth. And now you have marketplaces where the entire transaction is automated. There's an example of Open Door, which where if you have a house for sale, they will actually purchase the house from you and they automate the entire transaction. So what you're seeing in terms of evolution of marketplaces is more and more automation and seamless connection between the consumer and supplier, and seamless transactions taking place.
What's your take on, Elon Musk took over Twitter, spent $43 billion taking over Twitter to not only change the name, but they went from being a profitable company with $5 billion in revenue and growing to half of that, and they let go of 80% of their workforce, around 6,000 people. But a year later, much to, I think, most people surprised me as well as myself, they're still operating. Like, the company is still working. People are still able to do it. What's your take on the future of Twitter and what Elon Musk has done there?
So that shows the power of network effects. It's very, very hard when you have network effects in place. The reason that people still go to Twitter is because they're following a range of people, that they want to get the latest news and information from. And those people are still staying on Twitter. Facebook has tried to displace Twitter or X with their offering called Threads. And they have, gotten some level of success with that, but they've not been able to displace Twitter. And so the power of network effects, can be seen here, even though Elon Musk has made a numerous set of mistakes, and the way he is managing that platform is, a lot to be desired. I as a user, for example, myself, I'm a Twitter, active Twitter user. I did try to switch to Threads when it came out, but after some time, I gave up and went back to Twitter because that's where I was getting the best news and information. So I think they will be around for some period of time, despite the mistakes that Elon has made.
I mean, it certainly showed that he's not as brilliant as everybody thought he was, right? Like you work with Bill Gates and you've worked with brilliant people. They're
Yeah,
never as smart as people think, and they're never as maybe not so bright as people think either, right?
that is true. I mean, Elon Musk, to his credit, has achieved a lot with Tesla and with SpaceX, but I think has done a poor job with Twitter. It's very clear. So, sometimes you can have people who are brilliant, but have their own idiosyncrasies that prevent them from really doing a good job.
Here's my last question. Finally, we live to see Amazon. Will we ever live to see Amazon, Facebook, or Google, which seems incomprehensible now, but people thought that of Sears, which lasted over 100 years. What industry leaders do you think are going to fall?
Yeah, I think right now Microsoft is in a good position. Amazon is in a good position. I think uh, Facebook, um, you know, could be threatened in the future. But these days, I've stopped using Facebook because instead of seeing posts, from my friends and relatives, I see a bunch of junk in my feed, and so I've lost interest in going to Facebook. They're also investing in with Oculus, making huge bets there that I'm not sure will really pan out. So I'm not so sure that Facebook is going to be there long term. Google also is under threat at this point, though I think they have an opportunity to come back and really innovate on the search experience using AI. So I think that's my assessment of the current leaders out there.
I do actually have one more question. You talk a little bit about this in the book. What role is the metaverse going to play, if any role? I mean, Mark Zuckerberg, as you just mentioned, made an enormous investment, over $15 billion in
Yes.
the metaverse and changed his name, everything. Is the metaverse going to really catch on at some point? I mean, I've been to conferences and I thought it would be a big hit. What's your take on the metaverse and what role will it play in these platforms, winner take all marketplaces?
Yeah, I think the technology is still some ways away. From what I continue to read is that even the best devices like from Apple, people cannot use them for long periods of time because they get nauseous and so forth. I think initially the utilization will be more enterprise for specific enterprise applications like training or providing training manuals and so forth. And then once they have solved the issue with nausea and you can utilize a device for an extended period of time and people are building games and so forth that provide a superior experience, then I can see that you will start seeing more widespread adoption of this technology.
I want to thank you so much for taking the time. I so enjoyed the book, so enjoyed hearing you talk about where all this is going and the opportunities that are there. I look forward to the next book that you have, so you have to let me know when that book comes out so we can have you on again.
Thank you very much. This was a great conversation. Love the questions that you had and enjoyed it.
Everyone have a wonderful weekend. We'll look forward to seeing you next Friday.